Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Let's continue with this series. In the previous episode, we have completed how we have joined the seller program, right? But you can see the whole seller flow is still not completed, right? There are few pieces are still missing. Let's try to cover it up, all the missing pieces one by one. In the buyer flow, if you can see, while you are browsing the products, all the products are orphans. Right now, we don't have any kind of restriction while we are creating the products. But that is not the ideal case. So in order to create the products, only seller can create the products. So buyer can buy the product if that the product belongs to any seller while you are going to place an order. At that time, this specific order, whatever the item has been included in this order, that item will be notified to the seller as well as, hey, your product has been sold properly. So you can get the report. So that specific relation we need to establish, right? Let's try to dive into the product service. Here in the product service, what are the things we are going to take care today? List of the seller products and the create products, edit and delete products. So all these 4 pieces we are going to cover it up. Then we will go to this transaction service where we will get the seller report. Let's dive into the source code. Here in the product service, if you go inside the src directory, right? These are our Lambda functions where our APIs are handling, right? Here inside the product API, this is a kind of use Lambda function, which is handling the post, get, put, delete, everything inside this one, right? So that means each and every function has their own dependencies, right? For creating product, get product, edit or delete products, right? So to get all these things, it has to enclose all these dependencies together inside this Lambda function. That means end of the day, this Lambda function will be ended up with a lot of unwanted dependencies as well as. That means if you are deploying this product one, right? Maybe you're dealing with the create product, then unnecessarily you need to enclose all rest of all dependencies as well as, right? So which is we have just the edit in the beginning of this this product service just to show how or what are the way we can do it, right? But this is the right time where we will be refactor a little bit code in the professional way, so you can see like, yeah, this is the cleanest way. So where we can segregate all this responsibility to the separation of concern. So let's try to do this one by one. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to create a directory here that is called handlers. So here inside the handlers, let's try to move all the API, all the Lambda functions from here in the top level to inside the handlers. First one, then three, then this one, then this, then this is one. So let's try to move it. Cool. Every time while we are going to create a kind of Lambda function, right, from the infrastructure level, if you go to leave directory and if you see here in the service tag, so here in the service tag, you can see these are our services. That means these are our Lambda functions, right? And here we are creating individually all these functions. So this is the way you can create it, but we will optimize this whole specific service tag a little bit in different way. The way we did for our transaction service. If you go to transaction service, you can see it's more cleaner than this product service, right? So if you go here in the transaction service tag, maybe this one service tag, you can see these are our 4 Lambda functions, right? Which is we have created very nice way. And only what we are passing it on, only we are passing it the name of the Lambda function, right? What is the name exactly? What is the handler, right? So that handler is we are defining here. Right. That means only one function is going to take care of creating all these Lambda functions, right? You no need to pass that specific file differently. But that is not the specific case, or you need to do this way. This is one of the efficient way. And another way also you can do, like you can define the file path, right? Then if you have, as an example, if you have a multiple Lambda functions and if you don't want to keep inside the index or maybe refer to that index, then still you can do that. Right, but this is most cleanest way, you can say, the way we are using right now, right? Better than this way. This is the cleanest one, I believe, right? So let's try to implement this transaction service way, all this Lambda function stuff here in the product service. First of all, I'm going to create one index file, so at least I can refer while I'm creating Lambda functions to handlers.index.ts. Right. And I am going to export all these files to this index.ts. So on the time of the create, the Lambda functions, handlers, then I'm going to refer to the index.ts only. So export from then this guy. start from message API, start from, then our message queue, start from, right. So you might have thinking like why we need to do these things just in order to accomplish that specific seller flow, right? But why exactly it's necessary? Because we are going to add some kind of authentication as well as. So in that case, we should have to clean up all these methods or all these things clearly in order to not to make some confusion, right? So you can have a kind of clear separation of or clear authentications of where exactly it's going to be needed for maybe product service, maybe deals, maybe category, or where exactly it's going to be needed. So that is the way I am just trying to segregate, trying to clean up all this code first, right? So if you don't want to clean up, then still fine. You can skip this part. Then you can go to the next part where we are introducing the authentication part for our product service. Let's do these things one by one. First of all, this category API we are going to take care. So I'm going to close rest of all, close all, go to category. So let's try to optimize this category API first, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to create one. This is called the create category and get categories and get category and edit category or delete category. So those are approximately, we have 5 functions, right? Those are we need to create, right? So I'm going to add some code quickly and I will get back to you once this is done. Perfect. So what we did here, we have introduced 5 different Lambda functions, which is called the create category, get categories, right? Edit category and delete category. We can fairly remove all these functions from here. So post is covered, get is covered, put and delete, everything is covered. So let's try to delete everything. So this function exactly is not required because we have a default functions, which is maybe some of the method we are not supporting. That's why we are just putting this one. But in this case, it is not required because the response it is handling by the handler directly, right? So now our category API is pretty much clean. So let's try to remove all these unused methods here. Cool. Now it's perfect. Now let's go to the deals API. So we have not added anything right here, but it's maybe deals handler. So if you can manage some time throughout of the series, then we are going to handle this deals as well as. But as of now, just try to push it back. So I'm gonna close this one for a while. Let's go to image API here. Maybe we can change this one from the handler to image upload. Maybe image uploader. Yeah, that will be a kind of convenient name, and rest of all is fine. Then now our product services product API is complaining. All right, that means we need to take care of product API as well as. So message queue is like, this is also we need to take care because we cannot keep this like default name as a kind of handler here. So as a convention, we are maintaining some kind of proper name, all right, with the help of the camel case. It's up to you. You can keep it like capital case also, just like this way, right? But this is perfectly fine because throughout of the series we are maintaining this kind of convention. Let's go to our this message queue as well as, and message queue also we can change its name from default handler to something else. As an example, message queue handler. Perfect. Now go to the product API. The way we did for our category API, right? The same way we will be going to do something for our product API as well as. So this is also similar kind of stuff. Like we will be having 5 different functions for one is to create, and 2 for the get all the products and get one single product, and edit and delete product. Right. Let's try to do these things as well as very quickly. inside this handler, we have covered everything. Like we have created product, we have get product and get products and get product. You can see here, yeah, this is the create product, get products, and edit product and delete product, right? So we can clearly like remove this whole Lambda function here from here. So let's try to remove it. So now we can see there are no any kind of complaints. So that means our handlers are completely ready. So here inside this lib directories in the service stack, we are going to refactor this whole code base a little bit, right? Here now we can see product, service, category, deals, image, and queue. Everything is a kind of one big Lambda functions. So we don't want this way. We need to have kind of separated Lambda functions, which is going to tackle each and every single responsibility. So how we can do that? In our case, you can see we have a lot of Lambda functions. That means as much as product service, we need to create 5, and for category, we need to create 5 or something like this way. So that means if you have a multiple function, that means you need to create a tons of functions just for handling all these features, right? So that is not going to be ideal case. Like this is the same thing you need to repeat here as well as in the API gateway as well as. Because API gateway also need to deal with or maybe need to create all these things separately. So there are a lot of codes, right? So we are not going to do all this lot of codes in that way. What we are going to do, we're going to introduce one kind of interface which is going to be comply all these things, all these related functions, how many numbers of functions going to be needed. We'll hook up right there. So you no need to create repeatedly the same thing for the service tag as well as for the API gateway tag as well as, right? Let's try to do that. So here inside the lib directory, we are going to create one new file that is called service interface, right? So let's try to create that. Here inside this service interface, let's try to define our required Lambda functions, right? So here we will be having our product section. So these are the things we are going to do. So how we can do that? First of all, let's try to accomplish our product related all the Lambda functions. Right, so these are the initial functions for the products going to be needed, right? One more function will be required for our seller service. Let's try to add that one as well as. So right after this get products, we can put it right here, get seller products. Seller product. So we can get all the seller products from our service, right? So this is going to be called from our customer service. This is going to be called from customer service, and this is also going to be called from customer and the seller as well as. Right, but this function exactly belongs to seller also, and rest of all will be from the seller. Right. Now it's perfect. Let's try to add all these things to category as well as, because category also will be having these similar functions. All right. So in that case, we don't need that get seller products. Let's try to remove everything, all these comments from here. So instead of this product, we're going to replace with our category. For the category also we have just covered, right? So for a while the deals, we are not going to do anything for a while. Let's try to create one mock function, create deals, right? This is only one function we have just covered here. That is, we will be try to hook up. So just for satisfy all these constraints. And other functions, what are the other functions we have? We have the image uploader and the message queue, all right? So these are the two functions also we need to cover it out. So let's try to assign that one as well as image uploader, and second one will be our message queue handler. Here inside the service tag, let's try to add some code. In the bottom of this file, I'm going to create one method that is called create handler, and it will take two parameters. First of all, the props, it will be Node.js function props, and second one will be handler. This is going to be a kind of string, and it will return a kind of node function, Node.js function. Let's try to add some code inside this create handler function, right? Here I'm going to copy this piece of code from here because it is going to return a kind of new Node.js function, right? Let's copy here, put return. And a couple of things we need to add here. First of all, this hard-coded name, it is not required because we need to put this handler, which is we are going to pass on the time of the create this Node.js function, right? Then we are going to assign here handler, and this is the specific directory where we will refer to that our source file, right? And that is going to be our source, handler, and index.ts file where all these Lambda functions we have exported, right? Let's try to do that. So here, handlers and index.ts, right? And one more thing we need to add, because right now if we're going to create this Node.js function, it will create this Node.js function based on this index.ts. That means we will be not having a kind of a default handler, right? But for this Node.js function, we need to define this handler. That is the way it can be find out go to this specific index.ts file and grab that piece of code, which is going to be like maybe this image uploader, maybe this message queue, or maybe like create product, something like that, right? That is, we need to grab it. So let's try to assign that handler here inside the handler parameter, put handler. Okay, and this is not going to be Node.js props, this is going to be props, right? Which is coming from here. So our create handler function is perfectly created. Now let's try to get rid of all these functions from here. Okay, this is not required. Let's try to remove everything, right? And this one as well as, right? So instead of that, what we are going to do, we are going to add public read only services will be service interface. Yeah, this one, right? So which means while we are exposing from our service tag, then our rest of other service, which is exactly needed to access this one, it can be access all the Lambda functions inside the services, right? It can be referred to this one. So that means we no need to assign, you no need to define all these Lambda functions repeatedly, right? So let's try to assign all these things one by one. So let's try to create all these Lambda functions inside the services. Let's try to do this way, this dot services, right? If you go to this this object, inside this object, then you can see the rest of all the Lambda functions are listed here, right? We're going to assign one by one. As an example, create product, and this create product will be this dot create handler, where first of all we need to provide the props, all right, which is called Node.js function props. Here, this one we can provide it. So let's try to make it a little bit concise. Props, right? Function props, and second parameter will be our handler name. So this is exactly the identical to our create product, right? So if you go here inside the product, maybe you can get the same name, right? Create product, get products, edit, delete, right? And right here, let's do one more thing, which is going to be our maybe. So here inside this service interface, we have added one more function that is called get seller products. So let's try to create that one as well as here inside this product API. We're going to add it here right after products, right? Let's try to copy this one from here, add it here. The same name we are going to keep it, and this one will be like this, right? So this is we will take care. We'll take care later. Okay, let's go here in the service tag. Here, this is perfect, but the rest of all the functions also we need to provide, right? Let's try to do that way. This is create product, then let's go So our services are ready. We have optimized our code for creating our Lambda functions, all right, which is going to take care of our creation of the Lambda functions. by providing that the specific path of that handlers. All right. And now let's go to the API gateway, right, where we will be hooking up all the services stuff right here. So here inside this API gateway stack props, we are going to remove all these things from here. Instead of that, we are going to assign service. Services will be service interface. Service interface. Perfect. So we have added our service interface in here in the API gateway stack props, right? Let's try to implement that. So in order to implement that, let's try to add some code here. Let's try to get rid of all these things. What we are going to do, we will be add like services. Perfect. But this function, add resource function, we need to tweak a little bit, right? So now you can see this Lambda function is a little bit clumsy, right? So we need to optimize this function as well, as because we have created these functions just to handle one single Lambda functions for everything, right? So let's try to handle this create endpoint first, right? So this create endpoints function, exactly, it's taking everything together along with, and it is creating the routes for our child endpoint as well as. So what we can do, let's go to resource type here. We're going to customize this resource type a little bit. Right, so let's try to refactor this interface a little bit. So here in the resource type, let's try to remove this child resource type. Okay, we're going to remove this one. Right? And name is fine, method is fine, but we need to define one more thing that is called method, right? Method. This is going to be method type, and here handler will be I function. Okay, so what will be this method type? Let's try to define a type here, or additional method as an example option, or something we can just add it right here as well as, but for a while we are going to concentrate on this kind of methods. Okay, let's try to assign method type, right? And now I think this is perfect. Okay, resource type, we have the name and methods, right? And this is not going to be string, this is going to be method, right? So now our interface is ready to use. Here in the create endpoints, let's remove this handler for a while. So we need only the resource, right? The resource will be kind of REST API, and name and methods will be needed. And this is a kind of resource type. This style is not required here. The Lambda function we can move inside this map function, right? And the first thing we need only this root resource, right? Where we are adding a resource to our, while we are creating endpoint, then it will add a kind of resource to our REST API. Okay, that is what we are going to do here. And now methods will be have a kind of item, right? And where we are just creating this Lambda function, right? And this integration will be come from here, which is called item dot handler, because if you go here, we have that the method, whatever the method we are going to pass it here, maybe get, and get can be handled for a specific Lambda function. That means each and every method will be having their own Lambda function, right? That is what we are doing here. And now this specific item will be this is Lambda function is correct, and resource type, this is going to be like item dot method type, right? Perfect. Now we don't need this child here. Let's try to remove it and return our root resource. Yeah, because this root resource we are going to reuse. Maybe this is a kind of root resource where maybe products you have, then product can have a product by ID or something. That is we need to add, right? In that case, we're going to add one more function that is called add child endpoint, right? Let's try to add that one as well as. So this is going to be like add child endpoint, right? And resource will be our root resource, which is a kind of API gateway and resource. That is, we can just keep it from here, right? And method will be the similar, just like name, method, and resource type, right? So in that case, we don't need this root resource anymore, right? Because it's already been added, right? So in that case, we can utilize this root resource, and this is going to be our child resource. And this is, we can put it here. Resource.add resource. Yeah, and name, right? This is going to be root resource. Maybe you can rename this resource as a root resource. So here we are creating one child resource here, and inside the methods, right, the similar kind of things going to be happen. This is not going to be root resource anymore. This is going to be our child resource, right? And here we no need to return anything, right? Just like this, right? So let's try to get rid everything from here, right? I am going to comment it out first, right? Then let's try to add one by one. First, we are going to do like for our endpoint for our products, right? Right. So here, product endpoints. Here, const product resource will be this dot create endpoints, and here API gateway, we will pass API gateway, and we will set the name of that. We will set name of the resource will be product, and it can have methods as well as, right? Method can be kind of array, and array can have the object of method type. Now already we have a kind of strict type here, so you can just simply check like which method exactly you can provide it. You go for post, and the similar way here assign the handler. Handler will be it will be coming from our service, services dot create product, right? So this is our product created one, right? And we can get the same thing from our here as well as, right? For this is going to be get, right? Get product, because these are the two endpoints which is exactly executing from our root. Rest of all, product by ID, product edit, delete, or get all products or something, that is we can handle it. Okay. So now in this case, let's try to get these things. Get products dot get products. Perfect. This is how we are creating the endpoints, root endpoints for our product. So let's try to add the child endpoints as well as, right? So to adding the child endpoints, let's try to do this way. This the add child endpoint. First of all, we need to provide the root resource, that is we have created here, product resource, and we need to provide the name as well as. Name will be this time going to be like ID, perfect. So this is how we are adding the endpoints, like creating the endpoints and the specific endpoints for our product as well as. So maybe better you can do yourself accordingly, like rest of all, right? So I'm gonna do rest of all very quickly, and maybe you can refactor this whole thing in a separate file, or maybe helper class or something, where you simply just provide that, or maybe pass that specific resource name and the specific service, then it can be created automatically from there, right? So this is how we can optimize the code. All right, so I'm gonna add some code quickly in order to accomplish the rest of all Lambda functions quickly. I have added the remaining part of the codes. So now you can see like this is our product endpoints, right? Where we have created our products, and here this is our product child endpoints, right? And this is our seller product, because we are adding a kind of separate endpoint as well as for our seller flow, right? This is the separate endpoint we have added in the root level. And this is a kind of get endpoints, and you can see this is pointed to our seller products Lambda function, right? Now let's try to close it out. And this is our category in the same way we just did for our products. And these are our category style endpoints, right? And this is for deals. So this is our image upload, and this is our product queue. Inside the product service, you can see these are throwing some kind of error because they are not defined. These properties are not defined in the service tag, right? Let's try to remove that, right? So instead of that, what we are going to do, we are going to assign the services. All right, so now you can see we have created this bucket here, and we are assigning some kind of permissions to our one of the Lambda function. That is, we need to assign it here. So instead of this image service, let's try to use services and image uploader. Perfect. All right, so now our bucket is resolved, right? Let's try to resolve this one as well as. So what we are going to do here, inside this API gateway stack, exactly what is needed? It is needed the API gateway stack props. So then we need to provide the service as well as, which is going to be services, will be this services exactly, right? We need to define it here. Perfect. So now you can see our API gateway is perfectly compliant. So let's give it a try to compile everything. If it goes well, then certainly we will be moving forward to our authentication part of the seller flow. Great. Now you can see we don't have any kind of issues, right? All the endpoints are listed correctly. And this is our new endpoint, which is we have added, right? And the style endpoints also, it is coming correctly, you can see, right? So it is pretty much clean for a while, and infrastructure side also we clean up a lot. So end of the day, like we have pretty much clean the whole service. Lambda functions also we have segregated to separation of the concern. Now in the next episode, we are going to implement our product authentications for our seller service. All right, then let's take a quick break and see you in a bit.